Well, we're not in Istanbul anymore, Toto. Well, I think I'm going to be able to do a very good video in this. Oh, what was I thinking? Okay, take two. Let's try this again. The snow has disappeared, which is good. It's been replaced by a wee bit of rain, but of course we don't let a wee bit of rain ruin our day, do we? Absolutely not. So, welcome to the free city of Gdansk. Hopefully we'll find some interesting stuff today, and if we're very lucky, maybe we'll even learn a wee something as well. On, let's go on a wee adventure then, eh? Okay, well, this place is a lot more colourful than I was expecting. Okay, I think I might trip in here because I don't think that is what I think it can be. Alrighty. Now, maybe my eyes are deceiving me. Maybe the beer here is a lot stronger than I thought. But is that what that is? I mean, surely not. I'm trying my best not to those kids in this video, that's a bit weird, but can you see who that is? That statue there, can you see that? That kind of looks like Neptune, the Roman god of the sea. Which, okay, if you're going to have a statue of Neptune, it's probably a good idea to have it, you know, in a coastal city, but this is a very Christian part of the world and that doesn't look like a new statue. I'm going to have to look that up. Okay, so I just did some very quick research there. Turns out it is Neptune. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that this might be a new statue built in more tolerant and enlightened times, but you would be absolutely mistaken. Turns out this statue dates back to the 17th century, which is kind of mind-boggling considering what used to happen to people back in those times if they went against anything the church said. You know, you could be somebody who just believed wholeheartedly in science and you could be executed for that in those days. So it's kind of weird that there's a statue of a Roman god in the middle of the city centre. I mean, it's a very beautiful statue, look at that, it's stunning. And that nice building behind it, which is a museum, so we don't do those. Huh. Well, I was not expecting to see that today, I'll be honest. Well, that was an unexpected start. I think if the rest of the city is this mind-boggling, let's just say, I think my head might explode, but never mind. Wow, I was not expecting to see a Roman god in a Polish city. Magic. Now, if you come to this city, one thing you'll notice is that there are lots and lots of these gates everywhere. Obviously these were the gates that used to be the entry points when the place was walled off to protect itself from invasion. However, this one here, which is particularly grand as you can see, this one actually doubled as a royal palace essentially for the kings of Poland who very, very rarely came here. They call it the Green Gate. Not entirely sure why, if I'm honest. Oh, that's good of you, pals, get in the camera, yeah. I just stand and take a picture. Even better. You can clearly see I've got my camera out talking, and what does he decide to do in his big stupid red jacket? Santa looking prick. Anyway, the Green Gate, former royal residence to the Polish kings, who never used it really. Oh well, their loss. Now I know this isn't to everybody's taste. Some people like it, some people don't like it. But one of the things I really enjoy about coming to a city like this, or any city really, especially in Europe, you tend to find, is the combinations of different architecture. So for example, if you can see on the left hand side there, you've got, you know, buildings that have been re-rendered. Some of them are nice, some of them not so much. But then if you go slightly further up, you can see that they start getting very medieval looking, right? But look at that, that looks like an old school tavern with all the flags outside and stuff. So on the one hand, you've got these medieval looking buildings that take you back a few hundred years, gives you a real feel for how the people of the time would have, well, what they would have seen when they were walking about, you know. So you've got that, but then if you cross the river, you have these nice modern buildings as well, and I personally really enjoy the contrast between the two. Oh, those are really nice, aren't they? Oof, I need to maybe look at get myself one of those if I get some money. But just the different combinations of architecture, it's something I really appreciate in a city, and it shows the past, but it also shows that the place is moving on, trying to bring itself into the modern world as well. And of course you've got the, well, I'm going to assume that pirate looking ship there's just a tourist trap, so we're not going to dwell on that too much. That said, can you see that black building in the end there that my finger is sort of trying to point at? Can you tell what that black thing there is? No? Okay. Well, I'll get a wee bit closer and I'll tell you exactly what it is. Okay, so I did say we'd get a wee bit closer to give you a better chance. The black building there, or it's wooden, it's made from wood. The building's obviously made from brick. Can you tell what that is? No? Ah, you're shite at this game. Right, I'll get even closer then. Okay, how about now? Can you tell? I know what you're thinking, Christ, what size of hamster would you need to turn that thing? Well, probably a very big one, but no, it's not a hamster wheel. It is in fact the oldest surviving medieval crane in the world. Back in the day, a few hundred years ago, ships would come in the same way they do now, and I'm trying to have a camera at that guy's face. The ships would come in same way they do now, and of course you can't really ask medieval people to put heavy bags and boxes on their back, so you had the crane, the big medieval crane. It would come out, would pick up all the goods from the boats and bring them onto the dock here. And that was just the way of life around these parts. Ooh, it's a very bright light. I'll try not to do that again. It's amazing how that's lasted all those years. Obviously it's been, you know, maintained, they've done a wee bit of work to it to try and keep it there, but aye, beautiful. And what you get a lot of here as well, when they're trying to kind of show you stuff, you get a lot of these wee these wee scale model type things explaining. Oh, there we go, perfect illustration of what I was trying to say. Boats would come in, the crane would come and pick up all the stuff, whether it was the amber or the food or whatever else. Well, that's a very fancy building for a 3-star hotel. It's nice though. Apart from the flickering light that seems to be going on inside, I don't know what's happening in there, and I will not be investigating. Ah, that's nice. Look at that. Now, I don't normally dwell on modern architecture when I do these videos for obvious reasons, but I think that place probably merits a mention. To start with, from a distance, I thought it was, well, I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe it was a half demolished building that hadn't fell down properly, but the closer you get, the more you realise that it's totally deliberate. Aye, there you go. That's I don't know what I think of that, to be honest. It's unique. Let's go with that word. It's unique. So when I started doing this video today, my plan was just wing it. Take a walk, see what you can find. But there is one thing that I knew I had to try and find, and that I was going to tell you a wee bit about, because it's definitely something that's worth mentioning. Polish history is quite interesting, to say the least, especially the last 100 years or so. So aye, let me show you this, and if you ever come to the city, this is definitely worth a visit. Now, this rather striking monument here was put in place to commemorate the defenders of the Polish post office. Basically, when the Nazis invaded, the Poles were sort of, well, they weren't taken by surprise. They expected the invasion, but they were discouraged from mobilising by the French and the British, who for some reason thought it was a good idea to try and talk sense into Hitler, as they put it. Of course, talking sense to fascists is not a thing you can really do because they're too far gone by that point. But when the Germans invaded, they, contrary to popular belief in the West, they actually faced very, very stiff resistance from the Polish. The Poles didn't just roll over and die like a lot of people seem to think they did. They fought back, and they fought bravely. Even though they were massively outnumbered, outgunned, and there was no chance of success, they made a decision to fight back for as long as they could. The plan wasn't actually to beat the Germans, they knew they couldn't, but delay them long enough so that the French and the British could sort themselves out. After a standoff that lasted a lot longer than it really should have, considering the numbers the Poles were facing, they eventually agreed to surrender. They were running out of ammunition, running out of food, and the Germans made promises that, of course, they did not keep. So after the people here surrendered to the Nazis, they were taken away and promptly shot. The word hero gets thrown around a lot these days. You know, people refer to musicians as heroes, or, you know, actors and stuff like that. Well, the next time you think about calling some talentless clown off the TV that you like a hero, just remember, this is what actual heroes look like. Releasing a music video or a new movie doesn't make you a hero. Staring death in the face and fighting for your country, that makes you a hero. And standing up to Nazis always makes you a hero. Right, well, I'm going to move away from there because it's actually quite an overwhelming scene when you look at it long enough and you think about what happened to these people. So I'm going to move on, hopefully find something a wee bit more cheery to show you. The common misconceptions about how the Poles fared during World War II are kind of disgusting, to be honest. In the West, we like to just take all of the credit for ourselves, but we ignore the fact that whilst Poland did, well, it capitulated, essentially. The Polish government and lots of the soldiers, they actually escaped and they went on to join the Allied forces in resisting the Nazis. And of course the underground resistance in Poland was one of the strongest that there was anywhere. Maybe an example of what I mean by that. If it wasn't for Polish pilots, the Germans would have probably won the Battle of Britain, because Polish pilots were far more experienced and far more skillful than what the RAF had at the time. You don't read that in your history books, do you? No, of course you don't, but it's true. And it was also Polish soldiers who liberated Monte Cassino in Italy. I think it was in 1944. So whilst their government was in exile and they were forced to flee or go underground, they never gave up. Don't think for a second they gave up. It's not really in Polish people's nature to give up. Now, when I came here, like a lot of people, I kind of had certain expectations. When you hear that you're in a city in Eastern Europe that was 90% destroyed during the war and then rebuilt during the Soviet era, you sort of expect every building to look a bit like that. Grey, miserable, and not very aesthetically pleasing, but... And I really should have known better. You know, I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't know better. But that's not what this place looks like. That's one building. It is in fact a very beautiful and colourful place. Lots of really old looking buildings that when they rebuilt the place, they were determined to maintain a lot of the Polish culture that was here before. They got rid of a lot of the German looking buildings for obvious reasons, but aye, that building there seems to be a relative one-off. Most of the buildings look a bit like these ones, and name me a country in Europe anywhere that doesn't have flats like that or apartments like that. Everywhere's got them. That shot there, the one that you can see right now, you could be easily walking through Glasgow and it looks like that. I think in the West we maybe need to get over ourselves a wee bit, because we're very, very arrogant about what the East looks like, and it's quite shameful considering, in my opinion. I mentioned earlier how this is of course a very Christian part of the world, which is why I was surprised to see a statue of a Roman god in the middle of the city. Yeah, there's a large Catholic community here, and there's quite a few Protestants as well. Of course, Pope John Paul, who's standing right in front of me there, was Polish. And there are a lot of these very nice and old churches, lots of them rebuilt, of course, after the Second World War. There's a lot of very, very stunning buildings around here. A lot of care and attention has been put into rebuilding lots of these places, and it shows, you know, these people clearly care about their city. It's nice to see. Lots of people just don't care much anymore, do they? Now, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me, or maybe I'm just seeing what I expect to see. Do those look like bullet holes to you? Bomb holes, maybe? It sort of reminds me of when I was in Sarajevo a bit. And we know exactly what those were. Those were definitely bullet holes and bomb holes. Strangely enough, none of the other buildings seem to be damaged, so it's just this church here. Well, I can imagine if they've left it like that, maybe they've left it like that deliberately just to remind people of what happened here, which is a good history lesson, really. Anyway. You might be wondering why this is known as the free city of Gdansk. Why not just Gdansk? What's so free about it? Well, this is actually one of the more unique places in Poland, mainly because it wasn't actually Polish until after World War II. It's got a very interesting history. I won't go through all of it, obviously. The Teutonic Knights once ruled here, and up until the end of World War II, the vast majority of the population were Germans. One of the excuses that Hitler used to invade Poland was that he claimed that Germanic peoples were being persecuted by the Poles. What a fucking nerve that guy had, right? I mean, God, projection at its finest. But there you go, that was the excuses he was using. You know, the Poles are persecuting Germans in Polish land. Fuck off. No, that we're not. No chance. But that was the excuse. And the city here was, like I said, it was predominantly German. So most of the architecture, most of the buildings were German style. It wasn't until after the war, of course, the German population was either killed by the Soviets when they came in. You know, bombs are relatively indiscriminate, unlike Nazis. And when the city then became part of Poland, lots of German people probably felt a wee bit awkward being here, so they left and went back to Germany. Those that were able to escape, obviously. So it's a very interesting place, this. It's very, very different from most Polish cities in that respect. One of the reasons why I chose it, obviously. I've just spotted a statue up ahead of me to a very significant person in Polish history. So I'm going to go and have a look at that because it's probably quite important to tell you about. Although having said that, I've just seen something else first. I'm not going to lie to you, when I first looked at that, I thought it was the Shame Wizard from Big Mouth. I genuinely thought that was the Shame Wizard. Oh wow, right, okay, I've been watching too many cartoons, I think. Oh, moving on. Now, I don't know if you can see that very triumphant looking guy on top of his horse there, but that is Jan Sobieski, the Polish king who helped defeat the Ottomans. Now, there's not a lot of European kings can say that they hammered the Ottomans left, right and centre, but Jan Sobieski is one of those guys. Take a wee closer look there. You can actually see, I don't know if you can make that out, I don't know if the camera's good enough to be honest, but he's on his horse there, and here, that thing there is the Islamic Moon. Obviously that's supposed to represent the defeat of the Ottomans. Back in those days, it was seen as a East versus West thing, a Christianity versus Islam battle. And in lots of ways it actually was like that, unfortunately. Sobieski had he didn't have the longest time on the throne, but by the standards of the day that's relatively expected. But here's the most impressive part about this monument that I just noticed, right? I mean, it's very well done, it's clearly a lot of time and care's went into making this. But on this side, this is really interesting. On this side is a list of all of the towns, villages and cities that he helped liberate from Ottoman control. Definitely thought it was worthwhile mentioning this guy. If you're going to come to Poland and you don't know about Jan Sobieski, then you don't know Polish history. And now you do. Probably worth mentioning as well, just carrying on from what I was mentioning there. Oh, hello. Guy's coughing his lungs up, that's not good. We'll change direction, I think. Probably worth mentioning as well, after World War I, Germany lost a lot of land, you know, in the Treaty of Versailles. That wasn't a very good idea long term. One of the places that Germany lost was this city, and it then became the Free City of Danzig. Danzig being the German name for the place, of course. Most of the population were still German until the end of World War II. So essentially what happened was the city here became an independent city-state. It wasn't Polish, it wasn't German, although it was heavily influenced and allied with Germany, especially when the Nazis came in. They sort of embraced that around here a little bit too much, if we're being honest. Right, you know when you play a game of Civilization and you get those independent city-states that always invade you and they've always got far more soldiers than you've got for some weird reason. Well, this is like a real life one of those. I just thought I'd better mention that part because somebody in the comments section will probably go right through me if I'm missing important pieces of information like that, right? And rightfully so, rightfully so. I'm always happy to take constructive criticism. Okay, well, the cheery content didn't last very long. I have found what is essentially a massive prison. Ooh. They've basically turned it into an amber museum these days, it seems, but you can sort of feel how grim this place was once upon a time. You can sort of imagine this was the sort of place you would absolutely not want to spend your last days, but a countless number of people would have done. Let me see, can I get my hand safely in and out of one of these things, I wonder? I don't know why I get caught here. Nope. Even my tiny wee hands are too big for those. Girl behind me looks at me like I've got horns in my head. Must be wondering, what's this prick doing? Aye, as you can see, this place is pretty grim. But, you know, at least it's a nice museum now, so let's just forget all the pain and suffering now. There isn't a lot to see. Except for these cool things here. These are actually water pipes. Noticed it earlier on, some people have actually put modern copper piping through it as well, like through the mouth of it. But take a closer look at it. This is these were all the water pipes, which are a lot fancier than ours, or at least they're a lot fancier than mine. I don't know about you necessarily, but maybe you're fancier than me. Well, she's lost her nose. Not entirely sure. I want to know why that is. But you can tell how grim this place was once upon a time. Very poor souls. Wouldn't have seen the outside of these walls ever again after seeing the insides. Well, I did not think I'd see something like this here today. This is very good, this is very encouraging, I like this. Now, as I'm sure you can probably imagine, very noisy truck behind me, but anyway, as you can probably imagine, the building that the scale model shows no longer exists. Why? Because that is the former Great Synagogue, a building that, as you can see, was very beautiful, very stunning, and used to dominate the skyline of the city. I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain to you what happened to this building, right? I mean, I've already told you that this particular part of the world sort of embraced the Nazis wholeheartedly. Not everyone, of course, that would be silly to say that. Not everyone supported the Nazis, and lots of German people were rightly disgusted by them as well. And lots of German people resisted the Nazis as well, you know, it's worthwhile remembering that. But yeah, this building here was actually destroyed before the Nazis even invaded. Why? Because the local population here actually elected the Nazis to lead the town council. And so, in 1939, months and months before the Germans even invaded, they closed this building down. They started attacking Jewish businesses. You know, all the stuff you've read about in your history books, all of that happened here. And then, of course, they destroyed the building. A piece of absolute cultural vandalism. A travesty, as you can see. I mean, look at this building, it's stunning. It's not just the architecture, it's what it represented, you know. A small community's ability to gather and worship their God. Taken away. Interesting, it's saying here that the building was actually only opened in 1887. That means that the thing barely lasted 50 years before they tore it down. Unbelievable, right? Now, I want to just mention something very quickly because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I've mentioned Nazis and Germans a lot today, but I don't want people to think that I have some sort of problem with German people. Absolutely not, right? Germans are some of the coolest people you'll meet. And if you've met a German, you'll know that. They're actually quite hilarious, most of them. Or the ones I've met are, I hear that Germans have a bad sense of humour, but the Germans I've met have all been really, really funny. I don't know what that's about. Maybe I just got lucky. But it's worth mentioning. Not every German supported the Nazis, right? I think the highest percentage, I could be slightly mistaken here, so double check it if you want, but I think the highest percentage of the vote the Nazis ever got in Germany was about 35%, which means the vast majority of Germans thought, this guy's a fucking lunatic, I'm not voting for this guy and his merry band of bigots, I'm not going to do that. And it's also worth mentioning as well, and this is something not a lot of countries do, the Germans, from a very young age, they teach their children what happened, right? They don't shy away from it, they don't pretend it didn't happen. From a very young age, German kids are taught about the rise of fascism and the circumstances that led to it, like unchecked bigotry, something we're suffering a lot from in the modern world. People seem to forget these lessons. So, from the age when they're very, very young, German kids, they know about Hitler, they know about how a guy like that could get into power, and they know you can't let that stuff happen again. Now, I've been to other countries where they just don't do that, right? In Spain, for example, most of the kids don't have a clue who Franco was, right? And it's kind of disgraceful, to be honest. It used to annoy the life out of me when I was living there. I used to ask the kids in the class, you know, you would get a question in your textbook. What was different about your country 100 years ago? And they would always say things like, oh, there were no cars on the road, or nobody had a TV. You know, and I would think, okay, aye, true. What about the fact your country wasn't a democracy until 1975, 1976? How about that? Is that not a big deal? And some of them don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Because the one thing about Spain that's really, really bad is the education system. It's just a horrible education system. No offence to any Spaniards, it's a great country, great people, loved it. But the one reason I could not live in Spain any longer was the state of that education system. I spoke to teenagers who did not know who Franco was. It was mad. So, you know, me being me, I used my class, my English class. I was supposed to be teaching them English, you know. It sort of ended up doubling as a history class a lot of the time, where I had to do the job of their history teacher and tell them what happened and tell them why they need to be very, very careful. Because of course in Germany they take a lot of effort, they make a lot of effort to not allow that sort of stuff to happen again. In Spain they don't bother, which is why you're probably seeing the rise of fascist parties like Vox and other lunatics of that nature. It's important not to just teach the good parts of your history, teach the bad parts of it as well. Be honest about it, because nobody's perfect. Right? There used to be a law in Scotland a few hundred, good 400 or 500 years ago. It was a long time ago, but there used to be a law in Scotland that you could kill a gypsy, and that was absolutely fine. It wasn't against the law to murder a gypsy. Is that something I'm proud to share with you? No, it's embarrassing, it's shameful, it's terrible. But it's worth telling people, because I don't know if you've ever noticed, but bigotry against gypsies is sort of normalised. We all understand why discriminating against Jews is dangerous. Most of us get that. Most of us have seen places like Auschwitz, and you know where that sort of bigotry leads you. How many people do you know are casually racist about gypsies? I know quite a few of them. And that's what happens when you don't teach your real history, when you sugarcoat it and pretend like you're always the good guys. That's something the British are really bad for. I'm sure anybody watching that's been honest about it will acknowledge that fact. So what am I trying to say? Be honest about your history, don't bullshit, don't obfuscate, and do not trust Nazis, kids. Don't trust them, they're bad people. Now, I was going to end the video there, but since we were talking about the Great Synagogue, I thought, let's have a wee look around the building that is built in its place now. It's not a synagogue, which is, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. If you're going to build something on the spot where an atrocity happened like that, you really probably should just rebuild the actual building, right? Maybe that's just me that thinks that, I don't know. But this interesting looking black building that you saw, that I'll show you more of in a second, is actually the Shakespeare Theater. I'm really not sure how I feel about this place. I mean, it's a nice looking building, it's quite unique, but what it represents, I'm not quite sure. I wonder, can we go up those stairs without somebody shouting at me? Let's let's try. So far so good. Right. In my defence, if I am breaking some sort of law, there's nothing telling me that. Ooh, okay, hello. I was not expecting this. This is cool. There doesn't actually seem to be very much up here. It's just a very strange designed building. Strangely designed, strange designs. I really should just have been a history teacher, shouldn't I? This English malark just isn't for me. Okay, well, that was a kind of a waste of time, I suppose. Right, let's go back. So I've considered ending this video a couple of times now, but every time I think about ending it, something else just sort of comes at me. Brainwaves, you know. So I've got one more thing I want to show you, something that's quite important. I will tell you before I go here though, I don't know what sort of reception I'm going to get. I don't know whether people are going to be happy that I've got my camera out. I don't know whether I'm going to be allowed in. I don't know. But we'll find out together. When I get here, maybe I'll need to hide the camera slightly, maybe the camera angles won't be quite as good, but it's definitely worth seeing, I would argue. Wish me luck. I might need it. Well, hopefully they do let us inside, because the wind and the rain are really starting to pick up. I would be forever grateful. So let's find out. Oh wow, I do hope that's a stained glass window. I can see, oh it is. Oh, we're definitely going to go and see that. That's beautiful. God, I do love a stained glass window. Ooh. We're definitely going to offer to see that. What have we got here then? Ladies and gentlemen, that is the most modern looking collection plate I've ever seen. Ah, shit. No cameras, no phones. Well, with all due respect, don't create beautiful things then. But there you go, that was worth the trip alone. Doesn't matter how many years go by, the collection plate never goes away, it just evolves. Wow. Alright, fair enough. I'm going to put this phone away because I'm getting some stares until I can find something significant to show you. I think that's probably got to be one of the most accurate portrayals of how God would have felt watching World War II. What on earth are they doing to each other? Like the way this guy's got the old costume on there, but he's still got his Converse and his skinny jeans. Excellent, man. Brilliant. Look at that. Absolutely stunning. Doing my very best not to talk too much here for, I just showed you the sign, you know why, I don't want to disrespect people. But aye, look at that. Spectacular. Right, well, I think that is the perfect time to end the video. I outstayed my welcome there a little bit. Ended up playing a game of cat and mouse with the security guard. He kept staring at me, giving me the death look, you know. Kept trying to catch me with my camera out, and I just waited until I walked behind one of those big beams, and then I had the camera out taking a quick recording. You might be fast, pal, but you're no faster than me, I guarantee you. So, that's that for today. It's been a very interesting look around, actually. Very pleasantly surprised. If you get the opportunity, get yourself along to this city. It's beautiful, very surprising, very nice. And bring a jacket. It's the one thing I'll say to you. It's absolutely freezing. Hopefully in the next video the weather's a bit better. See you next time.